What happened to half the audience? This is all, I mean, I hate to compete with lunch, but it's worse competing after lunch, because when you have a meal like that, you're just ready to take a nice little nap. So, how are you all doing? Have you found it helpful today? This morning? Isn't it amazing? I've had the good fortune of going to Orlando. I've been in New York. I was in Washington, D.C. Then we have one in Pennsylvania. And I've gotten a great chance to see Dr. Melendez. I even asked him to come out and see and talk to our board. And I'll tell you, everybody comes out so energized because for so many years we have been beaten down so much. And we get confused between, being Americans and not really being Americans, being Puerto Rican and being citizens, but then not treated like citizens. And then we have this whole immigration effort, and okay, are you guys citizens or aren't you? And we just get lost in the sauce, per se, right? So for me, it's been so eye-opening to be able to make it so specific about Puerto Ricans and who we are, even though that we stand with the immigration issues. But our issues are just different. And we have the good fortune that we can stand up on a lot of issues here in the United States because we can vote and we are citizens. And it's an interesting time because soy Boricua, para que lo sepan. No me pregunten después que no parezco boricua. Fui nacida y criada en Filadelfia y cuando voy a Puerto Rico me dicen, tú no eres puertorriqueña, porque hablo más lento que el resto de ellos, tengo que pensar 1 o 2 minutos antes de... So, for me, when Edwin this morning said that the #1 language of Puerto Ricans was English, I was like, yeah, that is my native language. Because when I speak English, I feel smarter, I feel like I have more words at my disposal, but that does not make me less Puerto Rican than when I started school, I didn't learn Spanish and English. So, like I said, I was introduced Nilda, Ruiz, and I have the good fortune of being the president and CEO of Asociación Puertorriqueños and Marcha, and I'm able to impact the community on something that I am so passionate about, and I feel that I'm genetically encoded to do, and my board is really nice and paid me well to do it, but my husband always says if she hits the lottery, she'll still do what she does, even if you don't pay her, because it really is really important to me. Growing up and being told that I could not speak Spanish, it used to just irritate me. I'm like, what are you talking about? My parents were born citizens of the United States speaking Spanish. Why can I not speak Spanish? And it wasn't cool. Today I have a son, and these little, I'm sorry for the Anglos in the audience, I'm not meaning it derogatory, but I have all these little gringuitas going after him saying, oh, he's so handsome, I love your brown skin. And I look at them and I'm like, wow, if you were growing up when I was growing up, that was not cool. So it's really nice that we've come such a long way. Yanil wanted me to talk, so let me tell you what the purpose for this is and not get off track. Today's purpose is to talk about civic engagement. So we're going to be examining various aspects of the stateside Puerto Rican political participation of engagement, especially as they relate to this ongoing presidential season and the role that community organizations and leaders like you in states with a large number of Puerto Ricans. So we have 3 really dynamic women that their bios are really long, and I've been out there in the audience where you are. I don't want to bore you, but what I will tell you is that they're mover and shakers, each of them in their own state. Many of you already know Dr. Vanessa Calderón from here, from Boston, from IBA, Inquilinos, Boricuas, and Acción. And she's doing some amazing things up here in Massachusetts, and I'll be honest with you, this is my first time here. And I'm so used to being in Philadelphia, New York, Puerto Rico, and I was like, really? There are that many Boricuas out here? When Dr. Melendez invited me, I was like, then we're gonna go up there for 5 Puerto Ricans. But it's okay, because wherever there's 2 or more, there we are. So the movement that I've seen, and I'm so excited because in every state, we're organizing ourselves, we're starting to be nicer with each other, and starting to participate in a way that we have not in the past. And when he said, are we organized, I was thinking of my own agency that was started by 9 veterans that came back from Vietnam. They went to Philadelphia. I don't know if a lot of you know that in Philadelphia, it was an industrial city, so many of the sugar cane, the shifts, and the workers came from Puerto Rico. That's how we ended up, well, first with the tobacco and then the sugar industry. So we have a long history there in Philadelphia. Se me fue el hilo. Whoa! The 9 veterans. So they started this little agency. Jibaros that couldn't even speak English very well, and everybody told them, you can't do it, and they said, sí, podemos, lo vamos a hacer. 5 of them started with $35,000 budget. They ingratiated themselves with Mayor Rizzo at that time. They started building social service. They started with mental health because everybody thought we were crazy because we couldn't speak the language. So they said, okay, we'll take advantage of that. We'll start with that. So they started with that. It grew to social services. And in 1989, we started doing community development. And it's hard for me because my mom always tells me, deja otra gente que te lave, no te lave tú misma. So it's hard for me to always toot my own horn. But I'll tell you this. APM in Philadelphia today employs 350 people. We have a $42 million budget, and we have over $150 million in assets. And I say that because I think we all should be proud, because I stand on a lot of people's shoulders, and I've been the CEO for 12 years, and more than half of that growth has been under my watch. But when I took over, I had a lot to work with, and I think that Dr. Sierra and those first pioneers, they did the heavy lifting. And for me, it was much easier. I have an MBA, I know what to do with finances, I know what to do with real estate, so I had something to work with, but they had nothing. So yes, we can, and I believe that this can be replicated, and we can do this throughout other cities. So I'm supposed to be the moderator, so I will, at the end, talk about some of the things that we're doing, but I think it's more important that we hear from each of our panelists and what they're going to do. So I talked about Vanessa. Natascha is from Miami, another mover and shaker. I think you saw her talking to herself here. She was not talking to herself, and no, she's not crazy. She was actually doing social media and talking about what we're doing here today. So this is being live streamed throughout the country. And Yanil, she had the Puerto Rican Forum, someone that I've had the good pleasure of working with at National Council of La Raza, and I've known her for a lot of years, another big powerhouse in Connecticut, and doing some amazing things. So, and I know many of you probably have really good stories too, but these 3 are going to talk to you about what we're doing, and each of them will have 5 minutes to tell you what they're doing. And then we're going to be collecting questions from all of you, and we'll ask them other questions. So we have an hour, so we'll start with that. And we don't need to start in any order, so is any one of you ready? Vanessa, you want to start? Okay, we'll start with Vanessa.
Thank you.
No? Have to push it and...
Push it and...
Oh, we have to hold it?
Hold it?
Push it.
Okay. So, keep my finger on the pulse. Well, anyway, thank you, Nilda, and thank you everyone for being here today, and thank you, Edwin and Betty, for organizing this wonderful event and for inviting me to speak today at this particular panel, which is so important. Like Nilda, I lead a community-based organization in Boston called Inquilinos, Boricuas, and Acción, which has a strong and long history of advocacy and organizing. Was founded in 1968 by Puerto Rican activists that stared down the bulldozers from the City Hall, and created IBA to develop affordable housing and programs and services. So today, IBA has in its housing portfolio 521 units of affordable housing, subsidized housing, serving very low-income communities, many of them Puerto Ricans. And in addition to the housing, we have programs in education, workforce development, resident services, and arts and culture. So But interestingly enough, on EVA's history and trajectory, even though it continues to be a strong advocate for the plight of Latinos and Puerto Ricans in the city of Boston and low-income communities of color as well, EVA's model has turned from one that was mostly advocacy and organizing to one that is mostly direct service provider. And those two are very different models when it comes to community-based organizations in terms of mobilizing people. So we do share a good deal of challenges in getting people organized and mobilized around certain issues. And that being said, that challenge is not small enough for us to continue to work with our community in issues that are important to them. But today I want to specifically talk, because it's very directly related to the conversation that we've been having all day, about an effort that started just a year ago in Boston, and it has spread out to the rest of the state and other parts of the country, actually, because we're on social media. You hear more about social media from Natascha. But it's called the Alliance for Puerto Rico, or Alianza por Puerto Rico. So in August of 2015, a very small group of people got together, led and invited by Otero Figueroa Duran, who wanted to be here today, couldn't make it today. But he started calling a number of people, and he called me and he said, listen, where are you standing on the issue of Puerto Rico? So I said, well, obviously I'm concerned, and this is what I feel and what I think should be done. And he said, why don't we get together? And so we did get together, and we invited a number of people. And to that first meeting in early August of 2015, we only had 6 of us. It was a very small group. Not because people were not invited, because we wanted to exclude people, just because people couldn't make it. August is a bad month. People are, August is August. But we said, okay, this is really good. And that first time, we had, and it felt really overwhelming, to be honest with you. And I said, shoot, how are we going to do this? Because we started talking, what are we going to organize on, about, around, for, who is going to be the audience? I mean, the task seemed like impossible. But we started developing some strategies. Well, we want to hold people accountable, and we want an audit of the Puerto Rico debt. We want to, the issue that we were talking about, Medicaid, this morning, we want to press for more Medicaid funding for Puerto Rico. We want to add Puerto Rico and approve Puerto Ricos to adopt bankruptcy exploitation. So we came up with a set of 8 strategies. And we said, and we're going to meet next week. So we were gung-ho. And we invited more people, some of them here today. Again, Velasquez, who I know is here, and others who joined the conversation and continue working on what are we going to do. So just about 3 weeks after our very first meeting, we had a rally. The Greater Boston Chamber of Commerce had one of those swanky breakfasts at the Four Seasons Hotel. And the main speaker was the CEO of Mass Mutual, next door in Springfield. And if you don't know, Mass Mutual holds the Oppenheimer funds, who are the bondholders that own a big significant chunk of the Puerto Rican debt. So that day, there was a rally in front of the Four Seasons Hotel in Boston with a group from us, with people that Otero Figueroa got from the 32BJ SEIU organization. And the rally, not only we had a rally, as all these people are coming into the breakfast at 7:30 in the morning, but we also handed a letter to the CEO of Mass Mutual demanding all these things that we wanted in just 3 weeks. So that tells you about the power and the force that a very small group of people could accomplish. The group has continued to grow. Today we have a Facebook page, Alliance for Puerto Rico, Alianza por Puerto Rico. Check it out, like it, join us, follow us, post information there. And in addition to that, the Alliance has continued to participate. We said we cannot do it only in Boston, we have to engage our Puerto Rican community in Worcester, our Puerto Rican community in Western Mass, in Springfield, and in Holyoke. So we had a retreat. We invited Dr. Edwin Melendez to our retreat in Worcester to talk about the situation of Puerto Rico and other organizations that are working on the issue, like the hedge clippers, to really create the awareness and help us continue to develop different strategies to bring that voice. So we did a lot of different things. In November of last year, less than a year ago, we had a very well-attended conference about the issues of Puerto Rico, something like this, but much smaller, one afternoon. What are the issues that are affecting the island? We brought people from New York, we brought people from Connecticut to talk about it, and it was very well attended for an effort that was done in a very short period of time. We had about 70 people in that room that afternoon. In December, members of the Alliance for Puerto Rico attended the Day of Action in DC. In April of this year, we did a rally in front of the Federal Reserve Bank in Boston, first thing in the morning when people are coming into the workplace, and we met with the president of the Federal Reserve Bank in Boston, Eric Rosengren, to talk about Puerto Rico and to ask him to advocate for the issues of Puerto Rico in front of the Treasury. So there's a lot that we could do. And we've been talking today about engagement. And part of that engagement is getting people registered to vote, is getting them out to vote. And this morning I went to the political representation panel, and it was such a wonderful conversation, such much energy and inspiration on how we can get it done. And also to call the elected officials and to hold them accountable. Tell them what is that we need to happen on us who can vote for them, for our families and friends in the querida isla de Puerto Rico. So that's very important. And lastly, to hold our corporate leaders and civic leaders accountable as well. And that's via rallies, via emails, via letters. I wanted to say that this past summer, as the Promesa effort is unfolding, members of our alliance, O'Donnell and Adrian, met with Senator Markey and Senator Warren's staff to talk about it, and they engaged their support to do amendments to Promesa. So we can do it. This is doable. We just need to organize, and that an effort like today, what's happening today, and the energy that we have felt all throughout the day, doesn't die here when we go home and get in the car back on 90 or 91, depending on which direction you're driving this afternoon. So, thank you very much.
Natascha, you want to go next?
Sure. I need to be pushing this all the time that I'm speaking. I speak with my hands, and if I cannot have my hands, it's kind of impossible. So whoever might not know, might not know me, my name is Natascha Otero-Santiago. I actually lived in Boston, in New England, for 10 years, where I went to school. I have it very close to my heart, but for the last 22 years, Miami has been home. Actually, I have a house in Miami, I say, but home will always be Puerto Rico. My family still lives there, my friends, I still spend every Christmas in Puerto Rico, and I think that cultural heritage, that family heritage calls me very much to do the work that I am trying to do in South Florida and in Florida. So I think I'm here representing South Florida. Thank you so much, Edwin, for inviting me to be part of this plenary panel and realizing the importance of a very large community that goes unnoticed. In South Florida, which is Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach, we have more than 300,000 Puerto Ricans. Yes, I love that wow. Let's do it a huepa. And I understand the importance of Central Florida for elections, for voters, for presidential candidates, for the way that Puerto Ricans are represented in Florida. Central Florida has always been the place where everybody looks to. But now we have to start looking at South Florida. And South Florida is the place where a lot of the professional base that is moving from Puerto Rico or is moving from New England looking for better weather are moving too. When I got there in 1994, I could say that I was the token Puerto Rican in every place I went. In my children's school, in my work, in my community, my neighborhood. Now I am one of more than 100,000 Puerto Ricans that live in Miami-Dade. That's where I live. We are evenly divided, to go back to what they said, that Edwin said about we being all over the place. Yes, we are all over the place. While Cubans, out of the 1.4 million Cubans in Florida, in Florida, 1.4 million Cubans in Florida, 900,000 live in Miami-Dade. So you can get an idea. Out of our 1.1 million, yes, Puerto Ricans in Florida, only 100,000 live in Miami-Dade. So we are all over the place. And that is why any effort that we have on civic engagement becomes so much more important, and why social media has become an amazing way to generate attention for this community. I actually started a network called Parranda Puerto Rico 3 years ago. We started Parranda Puerto Rico actually when we saw the social crisis that was happening in Puerto Rico. Economic crisis was not even spoken about at the time. It became a subject more like 2 years ago. And we started with Parranda Puerto Rico, which was to create a bridge, which is, I think, a very necessary thing to have in any Puerto Rican community across the United States. A welcoming community that is ready to accept any migration of Puerto Ricans that are coming from our island. We are not judges. We don't know the reasons why these Puerto Ricans are, specific reasons why these Puerto Ricans are moving from the island, and we're not home to say you cannot move away already. 2 minutes. Hold on a second. You see, just because I represent 300,000 Puerto Ricans in South Florida doesn't mean that I get my 2 minutes so fast. Okay, so let me quickly say what we have been doing in South Florida. We started because it's a younger, newer community. People are still getting together with cultural activism. So we have started concerts of Bomba in Plena. And what I started around 5 years ago of concerts of Bomba in Plena started with 100 Puerto Ricans and ended up being 600 Puerto Ricans. It is known that Puerto Ricans love to get together around their music, around their traditions. And that's how we started doing it in South Florida. By the time that I finished my concerts of 600 Puerto Ricans that were coming to a very little place in Wynwood, they were coming from all over Florida. They actually were coming from Orlando and Tampa to come and hear Bomba Plena in Wynwood, which actually Wynwood takes me to cultural activism also, because Wynwood used to be the original Puerto Rican area of Miami, known for their Cuban heritage. Actually, we have a very, very small place called Wynwood that they used to call Little San Juan. Has a Roberto Clemente Park, has a Jose de Diego Middle School, has an Eugenio de Hostos Community Center, and guess what? It's being gentrified. And so it's the new Soho and Williamsburg of Miami, where everybody goes to and nobody knows its Puerto Rican roots. So we need to get together and let people know that this little park called Little San Juan was once a Puerto Rican neighborhood and has roots there. So, thank you. And I still am on my 1 minute. I'm done? Okay, you guys ask me the questions and I'll answer them, okay?
I was actually trying to be discreet, but okay, Yanil, you're thank you.
¿En Puerto Rican discreet? Hello, everyone. I just thank you, everyone, for being here. My organization is one of Antonia Pantoja's legacy. As you know, the National Puerto Rican Forum began in New York, as many of the great organizations that Pantoja left for us, like Aspira. We opened our doors in 1978, and we have changed our name since then 3 times, but we have kept the Puerto Rican Forum as part of that legacy of Puerto Ricans that were here before me, and before many of you that worked very hard to get the place at the table. The center is known now having working in workforce development programs since 1978, and that's for the adults and the youth. We also have been doing housing counseling. We help people with buying their first home, and we do a lot of after school programs for the youth. And we have mainly focused now on the youth. We are looking at a gap, a leadership gap in our communities, particularly in Hartford. Hartford is the capital of Connecticut, if some of you don't know, is 80% minority, and the largest minority group is Latinos, and Puerto Ricans are the majority of the Latinos. And we have lost some of the ground politically speaking, so we have focused now in all our programs to develop the next leaders of the city, hopefully the state. And what we do is that we work with them in developing, learning about the system, government system. They're learning about going meeting their councils. They go to council meetings, they go to Board of Education meetings, they do presentations of what is important to them. They go to the Capitol, and they also write their own speeches. So we have identified that community as our priority community. A lot of people said that we are not voting out there as well as we do in Puerto Rico. But we need to remember that we are a young generation here in the United States, and we have to develop that generation for our benefit. Another thing that we have identified as a group that we need to work with are immigrants. So one of the things that our organization did went out there, got to be recognized by the federal government to provide legal immigration services. And the main reason we are doing that is so people can go and become citizens, because they need to have a voice. Once they become citizens, we want them not to just go and vote. We want them to go and become members of government. We want them to know that voting is not enough, that they have the right to run for council, that they have the right to have a seat at the Board of Education. And that's what we have been doing for the last, I would say, 10 or 20 years as part of our effort to change the landscape of the community. The community is very poor, and but we blame that to the fact that we are not sitting at the table. Until we don't sit at the table, like I said, we are part of the menu. And what we need to do is make sure that our generations to come, they are there for the benefit of the whole community, because no one is going to give you anything for free. And no one is going to give you power. No one has to share power. So we educate them and we teach them the way. That is our future. And hopefully we have an opportunity to change the landscape again.
Very good. Wow, this is great. I haven't gotten the cards yet, but while it's coming up, I have a question. You know, it is so important. This is a presidential election, right? And Dr. Melendez showed us this morning that 52% of our folks. Now, we have a low turnout rate, but I'll tell you, everybody has a low turnout rate. So to just tag it on Latinos and Puerto Ricans, I think it's unfair. But how do we increase that participation? And especially now, it's not just the president, which is, for me, I don't know, for many of you, oh my God, it's such a headache when we look at the news today. I cannot believe that we're looking at this great country and what we're seeing. But all House of Representatives are up for election. We have senators that are up for election, and they have as much influence as the others. So we need to pay attention to all of that. Why do you think people vote? Because I think if we understand why people vote, we might understand why people don't vote.
I think obviously people vote because they feel that they can make a difference. They understand that that's part of democracy and getting your voice heard and really influencing the future of the community and, that you live and your country and your city or town, because those people are going to be making decisions for you. So I think obviously intrinsically people get that. But I think voting has to do a lot with that civic duty, right? With that desire to preserve democracy and to really have influence in the systems of power that make the decisions for us. So I think that's a very important piece on why people get engaged and register to vote. And then the flip side to that, which is why then people don't vote, why people don't feel like that, and that's not the question. So I will stop here, but then we can engage in that conversation if we have time. But other perspectives.
Well, I think that Maria Hinojosa said that Puerto Ricans in the island are possibly the most engaged group that goes out and vote. In the island, 85% of people that can vote go and vote. Something happens on La Guagua area when we move to the United States where that lowers to 52%. I think people go out and vote because they believe they are involved in the electoral process. They have people that they can identify with. In Puerto Rico is very political, so I think that there's always something happening with the elections. It's about the status a lot of times, not about the issues. But here, people have been educated about the issues for many, many years. Like in Boston, that's the cradle of the United States. So people are very engaged and they feel represented. I think that's what's happening here is that people are not feeling represented, the Puerto Ricans. There are certain areas that they are, but that their issues are not being discussed. So I think that if that is changed and we can find political leaders that will represent the different Puerto Rican diasporas, you will see an increase in voter registration and voting, going down to vote.
Wow. Great. You answered part of the question.
Puerto Rico Salía que said that in Hartford, 3 times they elected the Puerto Rican mayor. And what it shows is that when Puerto Ricans know the players, and when those players go out there and knock door after door after door after door, it sí se puede. You get to let people that are like you. It's when we don't get together, when we lose that goal, when we think that we are all set, is when we lose that dynamic. And I think that we need to be very strategic about the future, about how we make sure that we don't lose those seats and we add seats. So once again, as I said before, you need to be sitting at the seats, and we need to be strategic, and we need to make sure that we are not part of the menu by putting more people in places where policies are being made.
Can I say something? Just take the example of Marco Rubio in Miami-Dade. Marco Rubio won Miami-Dade when he had won many of the elections during his primary run. That's because the 900,000 Cubans that I was talking to you about are identified by him. So they go out and vote for him even if they are from another party. So just think that, it's time for a Puerto Rican senator to go out there in the fray, definitely.
I totally agree, and I wanted to add really briefly to that, because part of our problem as a community, que estamos regados, como bien nos dijo Edwin esta mañana, is precisely that, our own divisions, and really our sometimes inability to really support. Okay, so I may not like this person, but he's Puerto Rican, let's give them a chance, let's rally behind this person. We saw that in Boston 2 years ago, when we had a really crowded field running for mayor. After 20 years of having one mayor, a mayor of one generation, the field got really crowded with 12 people. Among those 12, there was one Puerto Rican American, Felix Arroyo Hijo. And I get it. Many people didn't like him, or whatever the case might be, but it was time. For me, it was symbolic, and I figured, let's support him, let's help him, let's get him elected, and then let's help him be successful as an elected official in the primer alcalde puertorriqueño de Boston. But that did not happen. Despite that, Felix in the primary came 6th out of a field of 12, not too shabby. But obviously he got knocked out of the race. But my point is that can't we all rally behind a person? Can we all rally behind? And if I don't like something about that person, let's talk about it. Let's tell them, and let's help them, and so they can represent us all, as opposed to say like, mira, tú sabes que pa' afuera. So that's an important lesson that we all need to learn and implement to be successful and gain the power that we want to gain.
So these are really great answers. I'm trying, there's different ways. So I'm thinking, what can we do to get Puerto Ricans to have more buy-in into what our process like? I know that many of them say, well, ¿qué importa? Uno vota por ella, hace lo que le da la gana, no me cambia la situación, todavía I can't get housing, I can't get this, I can't get that. And what can we do to get them to understand that, it's all reciprocal, and get them to buy in? And then I'm going to go to some of these questions, so if you really quickly, we can, yeah. Yeah, okay, maybe I'll answer my own question, because I kind of know where I'm going. I feel that people vote because they either want to be good citizens, right? They have a love for their country, and they just want to be a good citizen. Or it might be ideology, which is what happens a lot in Puerto Rico. It's always around, are we going to be independent? Are we going to be a state? Are we going to be a republic? And now we have found out that we are none of those, not even a republic. And I do see that one of the questions here is that will we benefit from being a state? We're trying not to get into the political issue because we don't want to get into topics that are going to divide us, because to tell you the truth, right now, we don't have that choice. We don't have a choice to be Puerto Rican, to be a state. We don't have the choice to be independent, or do we have a choice to be a republic? And why? Because we're a colony. And until we address that issue with Puerto Rico, with the United States, that unfair relationship that we have, we're not going to be able to make any of those decisions. We don't have a decision to make. It's like my kids, what college should I go to? Well, if you don't apply and you don't get accepted, you don't have a choice, do you? You might want to go wherever, but until they accept you and you know where you can go, then you have a choice. So, sometimes, hacemos canatitos en el aire, and then we're like, why are we not getting what we want? And we need to, it's a process, and this is going to take a really long time. This is a 10 to a 20-year process.
Yeah. And Nilda, if I may, I know I'm speaking a lot, but In my opinion, the issue of the status of Puerto Rico has become a secondary issue for all of us and for the people in the island, for our families and our friends. At the end of the day, right now, the power of the status of Puerto Rico is in Congress. So, because we're so divided about the issue, we don't have a strategy or an agenda to influence that one way or the other. No importa donde estemos, aquí, allá o en medio. So the bottom line for us has to be, and the call to action has to be, what are we going to do for the Puerto Rican community in La Isla and for the Puerto Rican community stateside, and how we're going to join? Because once we start seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, then we can talk about then what's best for the island and how we're going to rally Congress to go one way or the other. But to me, right now, the primary issue is the economic, fiscal, and humanitarian crisis that we've been talking about all day, and that's the one that we really have to rally behind.
So here's one question from the audience today. Can you touch upon this year's presidential election and the role we play as Puerto Ricans, especially in the swing states?
I'm considered a swing state. We're swing states. You're swing. Well, I actually thought we were talking about civic engagement, but I believe that as my representative in Florida, from Florida here at this table, I think that the Puerto Rican community needs to get united. Let's go back to civic engagement for 1 second, what we're here for and what we're talking about. Puerto Ricans need to get together, need to unify, even through our differences, because there are differences. Even the diaspora times that when we moved to Florida, which is the state I can talk about, are different. The Puerto Ricans that moved to Central Florida in the 70s and early 80s are very different from the Puerto Ricans that are moving today to Central Florida, and are also different from the Puerto Ricans that are moving to South Florida. So we have to take those differences and try to unify those differences. I think that the only way that we're going to win in any kind of civic and social engagement in Florida is if we become unified, look for social and political leaders, get them out into the mainstream, let people know about them, and then I think our presidential candidates will have something to really talk about and care about. I don't think they're caring enough about Puerto Ricans in Florida or anywhere, only for the vote. And I think that needs to change, and that's the only political thing that I'm going to say.
I just wanted to say we are in Connecticut and we're a very blue state, but it doesn't mean that we don't have the power to change what's going on in Florida or in Pennsylvania, or in a swing state, or in Ohio. As Puerto Ricans, we have family members, we're part of the diaspora, and we are out there, and we have relatives, we have cousins, we always have family out there. Let's grab the phone and talk to them, and they can talk to others that they need to get out there and vote, that this is very important to them. And also there are other ways to vote, and they're doing other places and you can do it. Open your wallet and support those agencies and those places that they need funding to get the vote out. It is important that other groups do it. Other ethnic groups out there support people from all of the nation just to get the people that they want right at the Capitol. We can do the same thing. Open your wallets, grab the phone, get out there. There's more ways to change minds than just sitting at home and say, oh, well, we are all set here. No, we can affect change too.
Yes. So Pennsylvania is the second highest state where we're getting Puerto Ricans, and I know I'm feeling it at APM, the ones coming. We have been talking, right now we're just going through a huge voter registration. So we have about 6 different offices throughout Philadelphia, And there are other schools that we work at. So at every front, we have voter registration. So while people are waiting in the lobbies, we ask them, are you registered to vote? We also have an app with National Council of La Raza that we can register them right there. And Pennsylvania also has an app that you can register people, and 2 days later you get your voter registration card. That's one effort that we're doing. We're putting it out to all of our clients. We have big signs all over. And then we have community connectors that actually go out into different communities, and they ask people, are you registered to vote? Are you registered to vote? So we're doing that until October, until the last day that we can do this. And we try not, we're not partisan, though like Edwin said this morning, I do have a preference. And, but you know, I really have to, I was talking with Natascha, my staff doesn't allow me on social media because they say that I just, you know, shoot from the hip and say what I have to say. And I can't do that as the presidency. and with the, so, I'm really, you have no idea how much restraint I need to have to not say what I'm going to say. So these are some of the things that we're doing. So once we finish registering, and it is so important because for me, I don't know how many of you have gotten tired of this, because when I look at this, I'm like, we don't need to register anymore, people, really. Puerto Ricans, many of them are registered. We just got to get them out to vote. Voting already. You know, it's like we need to just get out there and be present. But I'll tell you what the registration does. These politicians, they look at blocks, and I helped my great friend Nelson Diaz, who ran for mayor in Philadelphia, and it's my first time that I got so involved in politics. So what they do is they get these sheets, and it has all the wards, and it has everybody that is registered to vote. So if they go to a block, and they see that only 2 people are registered, but the other block has everybody's registered, they go to those, because they're trying to get them out to vote. So the registration becomes really important. After we finish with the voter registration, plan B is that we're trying to organize between all of the leaders, going to all the politicians, and I think all of you should do this, and to Vanessa and everyone's point here about having a seat at the table, is going on to all of them and saying, mira, this is the crisis in Puerto Rico. What are you doing? What's your position? And when you get in office, what are you going to do? And then what we want to do is publish that and put, here are all the people that are running, who's Republican, who's Democrat, and here's their position on Puerto Rico. We're not going to tell them who to vote, but you have, and you go and vote for Puerto Rico, and you have right there. So whatever it is that you feel, that's what you're going to vote. So that's how we're doing it in our swing state. I have questions up here, so I don't want people to feel disrespected that they did their due diligence of putting it on here. But I'll tell you, some of them I'll need to talk to Edwin. I think we could get an email out to all the participants here, because some of them are around housing, and we're trying to talk about civic engagement and how do we get out the vote. So I don't want to get distracted, and I have a lot of things on the greening as well that I could talk about, but we're trying to talk about how do we energize our community, how do we get people to get out and vote and say presente, because it will give us more respect. Even us as leaders, when we go and they see that there's a huge voting block, it makes our jobs a lot easier. So here's a question. There's a lot of questions here for Vanessa, but where can we find the proposed amendments to Promesa by activists? Is there a plan to leverage the Massachusetts legislators towards said amendments and the Puerto Rico cause awareness?
Yeah, when we proposed the 8 or 10 amendments to Promesa before it passed on June 30th, those were posted on our Facebook page, and Alianza, they could be there, but if you're interested, you can talk to me, we can email that to you. At this point, I unfortunately have to say it's late for those amendments to pass. Promesa is Promesa, and we're stuck with Promesa and La Junta for the foreseeable future. However, there are things that we can still do. This morning, Luis Aponte talked about the Medicaid crisis. And that if we get $3 billion on Medicaid assistance to Puerto Rico, that would be a great action for the island. Has nothing to do with Promesa, has to do with lobbying Congress to put resources and support for the island on that particular budget item. Maybe that's an action step, or that's a call to action for all of us here and across the nation to rally Congress to do that. I'm not saying that's it, but that is an idea. So there's still a lot of things that we could do, despite what Promesa and despite how we feel about Promesa, that we can still influence Congress. The Massachusetts legislature, we need to lobby them, but we really need to lobby all of us in our respective states is the congressional delegation, because those are the ones that are going to go to Washington and take these votes. If we don't educate them, if we don't raise awareness on the issue of Puerto Rico, and if we don't push and advocate for X, Y, and or Z, things will continue to pass and lapse, and we will see no results.
Great, thank you. And so this is kind of related, but not here, but it's a question that I think might be better for Gretchen. But it says in Puerto Rico, Walgreens, Walmart, and Macy's, and all these other American, or I guess large companies, every night they wire out the money that they've made in Puerto Rico out to the U.S. And how do we, what can we do to have this money stay in Puerto Rico? A tough question, right? Okay. It might not be for here, but I need to close out because I've already been told that we have 5 more minutes. So I think we do vote with our dollars, and I'll tell you one thing, those of you that have agencies that we did, my board says, you don't know that we started out as Asociación Puerto Ricans. We have a lot of Puerto Ricans coming, and this wave of Puerto Ricans is a little different than the previous wave, where many of them were very low income, needed a lot of social services, children's services. We do get a lot of kids with autism and issues that they don't know how, that there's not enough resources in Puerto Rico. But there's also a wave of professionals coming into the United States. And I'll tell you, it's really sad. I heard Nilda Velasquez talk about the Children's Hospital in Puerto Rico where it has 70 vacancies. Do you know there was a time where there were 3 applicants for every position, and we have 70. The doctors and all are leaving the island. And if people want to leave the island because they want to leave it, it's okay. But this is a real crisis that I don't think any of us have even seen the depth of what can happen there. So it's really important to see how we can spend our money over there. So if you're retiring, go back to Puerto Rico, take your money there. We just had a board retreat that we have every year, and there were 20 of us, and each of them brought their spouses, 2 or 3 people. We went to Puerto Rico. Now, I'll be honest with you, I wanted to have it in El Jibarito near San Sebastián, where my family is from, so that I could bring the money there, and El Conquistador, this is how hard they're getting, they matched that price. So my board was so incredibly shocked. Many of them are not Puerto Ricans, but they've worked in the Puerto Rican community for a long time, or they're married to Puerto Ricans, and they're like, oh my God, I need to come back here. So the 20 became like 60 more people that spent their money. I felt good because I saw a lot of our island people being employed there. So anything that we can do to take the money back to Puerto Rico, I think we should definitely think about that. And any big purchases, but I'll tell you that confina 11%. Whatever you buy, you have to pay 11% tax. That hurt a little bit. So I think I may have gone over budget because of that. So anyway, what I've learned here, I mean, were they awesome? Give them a big round of applause. So what I learned is that we need to hold our elected officials accountable, go and talk to them, but not only our elected officials, but also our corporate and civic leaders, hold them accountable, have a conversation with them, get them involved, use social media and the web. So I'm going to go back and tell my staff I need to do this. So use those as means out there. I learned that people are moving to Florida because there's better weather. And I'll be honest with you, I never understood why people move to Philadelphia because it is so cold. The winters can get so cold. And part of the reason we're in Connecticut and Massachusetts is even worse, right? I think that's why I admire, you know, people ask me, why do you keep Asociación Puertorriqueños en Marcha? And we're one of the very few agencies that still does that. But I'll tell you why I do it. I will not disrespect those jibaritos that came before me, that came with their little short sleeves and did not even know, and were in substandard housing, and you know you gotta help us, you know? I will not disrespect them, and I think that we owe it to them, and we owe it to our people to be proud of who we are, and we started as a Latino agency, we still are, Asociación Puertorriqueños. So we did that we're for everyone, so we serve everyone, but, because we can't discriminate who comes through our doors, and our immigrant community, I mean, we're locked hand in hand with them, but that doesn't stop who we are and who we started. Okay. Paybacks. Yes.
No. Okay. Are we finishing up? We're finishing up, ¿verdad?
I'm wrapping up and say, okay.
No, it's just I wanted to make a point regarding where's Edwin? Completely? Just a call to our political leaders and our presidential leaders that have usually no Puerto Ricans into their campaigns and haven't cared really about Puerto Rico enough in several elections now. I am telling you, it's when we talk about voter registration and sending Puerto Ricans to vote, somehow we have to make a point out of letting them know this. So go out in your communities and let the Puerto Ricans know that their leaders have to let them know what they're going to do, not only about Puerto Rico, very important about Puerto Rico, but about our communities. Thank you. I just wanted to say.
So there's two other points that I learned. Do concerts. Our people love music. ParrandaPR Puerto Rico concert, 600,000 people. Wasn't that impressive? So if we can go to Goya or whoever and get them to do some of these concerts, and that might be another way to get it out. Seek a place at the table. Let's work with our immigrant community to get them voted. We've stood up for them many times. We need them to stand up for us now. And the number one thing is no one is going to give us power. We have to take it. We have to get out there. We have to vote. It's our time. It's our time.
Thank you all of you. That was a great engaging panel. We're gonna break into concurrent panels now. I would like to let you know where they're gonna happen. If you are interested in LGBTQ issues, go to 107. If you want to know about Puerto Rican youth, 109. If you want to know about engagement and faith-based communities, 106. If you want to know about cultural activism and historical preservation, that is happening right here. And finally, if you want to know about veterans, and we should know a lot about Puerto Rican veterans, a topic dear to my heart, go to room 105. Thank you.